Hey guys, Hebrews chapter 11 today. Excited to get into this with y'all. I'm going to keep this around 10 minutes. I just set my timer to stop me short. I'm only doing 11 today because I want to keep it at 10 minutes, and I think there's a lot of meat in here that we can hold on to and work through and pray through. And chapters 1 through 10 is kind of the author giving us the theology of faith and the new covenant and all that. And chapters 11, 12, and 13 are going to be the practical application for us. So coming off of that, what is the theology we learned in chapters 1 through 10? Real quick, you guys should know this by now because I'm hammering it every day. Chapter 1, Jesus is more. He is greater than everything. Chapter 2, pay much closer attention to this then. Put your anchor on that lest you drift, which is chapters 3 and 4. You're going to drift and go over the falls, have eyes that go blind, ears that turn deaf, right? And what does that lead to in 5 and 6? We see that kind of leads to desert wandering. You're unable to step into maturity. You can't step into maturity of your faith because you're walking in unbelief. And then chapter 7, 8, and 9 basically says, what I was calling don't do the shadow worship. Don't worship the shadow of the earthly things that were meant to be a reflection of the heavenly temple and the covenant with God, right? The better has come now. Jesus has come. Heaven has come down. So instead of, like I was referring to, like kind of a tree, instead of looking at the shadow in the ground and going, oh man, look at this beautiful tree, like actually look up at the tree and see the beautiful leaves and the bark and the awesome three-dimensional nature of that. So instead of like worshiping the old tabernacle and covenant and temple worship, look at Jesus, who has now come through the heavenly temple to be our great high priest, right? And then chapter 10 kind of reflects on all that, but also says, I never even desired sacrifices from you. What I desired was relationship. But I couldn't get that from you without having some sort of sacrifice. But now I have sent the ultimate sacrifice, Jesus, okay? And then in chapter 10, it's ending, right? We're coming out of the last verse we left off yesterday was, but we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, right? This isn't salvation destruction. This is the destruction of God's purpose for us, right? It's essentially desert walking. We don't go and walk in the desert. No, we are not those who shrink back to the desert, but of those who have faith, we step into the promised land. But those who have faith to the persevering of the soul. And he comes right out of that and then slams right into chapter 11 with, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. Now, if you've grown up in church or been in church a lot lately, I'm sure you've heard that verse. Such a powerful verse that now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. Just alone, it sounds amazing. But when you take all of chapters 1 through 10 and you finish on what 10 is saying, is we are not men who shrink back from faith, but no, we step into that faith. And faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things unseen. Man, there's so much power there. And we got to remember, how do we define faith? We've been working through this for 10 chapters now. Faith is belief, and belief is obedience. Okay? These two words are inextricably linked. Faith and action are inseparable. They belong together. You cannot have one without the other. It's just obedience is the natural outworking of faith. I wish it was different, but we can't get away from that. And James even says this. I think it's James 3:17. No, it's James 2:17. He says that, just show me faith without works, and I'll show you faith that's dead. Now, he's not saying you're unsaved. He's saying that you're wandering around the desert that we've been talking about in chapters 1 through 10. You're not actually walking in obedience. You're not believing the things of God. Now, I'm not saying you're not believing in Jesus Christ for salvation. If you believe that Jesus Christ came and died for your sins and that work on the cross and his death and resurrection was enough for your salvation, you're a Christian, okay? But you can still walk in unbelief and just wander in the desert, like we talked about with the Jews. You are presented to walk into the promised land, the newness of life that he's prepared for you here on earth, but you can choose to walk in unbelief, okay? And so, if you don't believe me about this, if you don't, right, go in a pool. Go jump in the deep end of a pool and breathe. Of course you won't do that because you believe that if you breathe water, you'll drown. And so your actions will reflect that. Don't go walk out in front of a dump truck. You won't do that because you believe if you stand in front of a dump truck coming down the road, it's going to kill you. I mean, if you want to die, you'll step in front of that because, again, you believe that it will kill you. And that belief leads to action. Belief always leads to action. Always, 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 okay? And we're going to see that as we work through this chapter, okay? So, And I want you to remember, this is written to Christian Jews. It's pleading with them to not return to that old system, to that dead covenant that we talked about yesterday, but in faith to move on to something so much better. And guys, this is a direct calling to us as well. Don't go to the desert, go to the promised land. One is the land of disbelief or a lack of faith. That's the desert. And the other is a land of belief, of faith and obedience and action. And again, like now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for. We know it's going to happen. And the conviction, we actually step into that belief. And that conviction leads to action of things we don't even see. So let's think about this practically. This faith that we've been speaking of for 10 chapters, this belief that God's way, the promised land, is so much better than the desert. And even though we can't see it, we know it because he says it in his word, and we believe that. So because he says it, because it's in his word, we have the assurance of this thing hoped for and the conviction that we're going to step out and do it. And that's going to be the best way. And this faith leads to unmistakable and unshakable assurance that if we do that, do what he's called us to, it will be the best way. And guys, what does this look like practically? Your marriage, your work and discipline, your disciplined nature at work, your forgiveness. Are you in bondage because you won't forgive somebody? Your anger, your lying, your lust. Guys, in your marriage, honestly, God calls us to love our wives as Christ loved the church. Do you really believe that if you do that, you have the assurance of something hoped for and the conviction that if you do it, it'll work out for the best of you? Because if you live in that, like you're going to love your wife as Christ loved the church. You're going to die to her. Right? That means you're going to put your nature, your wants, your desires behind hers and always make sure that she is up ahead of you. Guys, your wife's never going to doubt that you love her. Never. And in that, as a woman and a creature of response, she's going to respond to that love to you. But we don't believe that. We believe, I'm going to love my wife the way I know how to love her, and she can either take it or leave it. And guess what? You're going to hit a wall every time. You're going to right turn into the desert because you're not going to be walking in the best way, because you're not actually walking in the belief that God's way is best. Okay? So, in verse 16 hits this too, where it says, like, they could have gone back to a different country. I don't want to read this real quick. I'm already running out of time. But here, it says in verse 15 and 16, and indeed, if they had been thinking of the country from which they went out, the old way, or Egypt for us, like the world, or just the old way, or maybe like the marriage, loving the wife the way I think she should be loved. If they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had the opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country. Men, this is it. It's the calling to a better country, a better thing, a promised land, walking in the ways of God, having that faith that his ways are better. Okay? This is a call to the Jews, but it's also a call to us to not wander, to not, I've got 2 minutes left, to not wander in the desert, to not go after our own way because we don't believe God's ways are better. This is a calling for us to not walk in unbelief, but to walk in belief. And again, this isn't salvation, this is sanctification. Okay, this is just so critical. And then he continues on with this amazing cloud of witnesses. He just goes for like 30 verses here of witness after witness after witness after witness that they believed, and that belief led to action. Every single one of these, if you go through and read them, every single hero of the faith that he mentions here, man and woman, their faith leads to an action. And so you've got this cloud of witnesses that's just cheering us on. They're telling you, believe in this, believe in this, and believe in this. And guys, you might say to me, Matt, it's too late. My kids are grown up. I can't do anything about it. My marriage is destroyed. Guys, we also see in verse 35, women receive back their dead by resurrection. There's resurrection life, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally with your families. Okay, you can. And we see here, like, the commentary points out, and I think it's awesome how Noah picked up and built an ark. It says here, verse 7, by faith, Noah, being warned by God about the things not yet seen, right? We just read that in verse 1. In reverence, that's belief, prepared an ark for the salvation of his household. Men, pick up the hammer of intercessory prayer. Pick up the nails of instruction is what the commentary says. And get to work believing that this meager work that you have to offer will lead to the salvation of your family, and maybe to lead to the resurrection life of your family or your marriage or your job. Guys, this is what he's calling you to here, okay? This is the practical application of all of 1 through 10. Chapters 1 through 10. Now it's saying, now in that faith, step out in belief, step into the promised land and believe. Like you got David here, right? A hero of the faith. Now earlier we were talking about the giants in the promised land and they were afraid. But be like David. He's cheering you on, saying, well, my God takes down giants. So slam into that promised land, guys. Go for it because it's there waiting for you. It's the better life. It is the better country, right? These are all heroes of the faith looking. They don't have a clear vision. They just know that God's way is better and they're going to head to a better country. And I want to leave you with this, guys. Every man in here, you need to memorize this verse, and it's Hebrews 11:6. And it says, without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Man, you must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Why is he not pleased if you come to him in disbelief? Because you're not actually going to step into that promised land. You're going to wander in the desert, and you're going to be where the end of chapter 10 was, a destruction of his purposes for you. How can he be pleased in that? He can't. So he's pleased when you come to him in faith. So you must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Guys, man, Hebrews 11:6, memorize that. And as you leave today, as we walk away, I want you to just pray, okay, God, what is it in my life that I'm walking in unbelief? What hero of the faith here is an example of that to you, calling you higher? What is it in your life that you need to go and say, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for. I hope for a better marriage. I hope for my children knowing you, Lord. I hope to be a better father. I hope to be a better employee or boss. I hope to be a better husband, a child maybe. I hope to be a better worker of ministry, right? What is it that he's set before you? And in faith, you now have to step into that and have an action on it. Because there's a better country, and you can't see it, but you know it's there. These heroes of the faith never saw Jesus. They never did. But in faith, they walked towards it. They walked towards God. Guys, that's what I'm calling you to. That's what he's calling you to. Step out and go seek that thing. Go seek that better country and leave this disbelief behind, okay? I love you guys. So excited for you. 12 minutes and 40 seconds. Cutting it down. Be praying for you today. Excited to get into Hebrews 12 tomorrow. Love y'all, and we'll see you tomorrow.